Welcome to British Focus. Today we delve into a matter that has sent shockwaves through Westminster and stirred passionate debate among the British public. It is a story both disturbing and emblematic of a wider crisis of accountability within our political system. The controversy centres on Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's emphatic demand for the immediate resignation of the disgraced former Labour MP, Mike Asbury, who has been condemned following a 10-week custodial sentence for a brutal assault on a constituent. This incident, which has rocked the corridors of power, compels us to examine the state of modern British politics and the ethical decay that seems to have taken root at the very heart of our democracy. It is simply astonishing that an MP, having been found guilty of an act so violently contrary to the principles of public service, continues to collect a taxpayer-funded salary of £91,000 per annum while serving his sentence. One cannot help but question the moral fabric of a system that permits such a flagrant abuse of power. Asbury's case is not merely an isolated incident of misconduct. It is symptomatic of a broader malaise that has left many of us disillusioned with the mechanisms designed to hold our elected representatives to account. How is it that, in this day and age, a man who has brutally assaulted a constituent can still enjoy the benefits of his office, leaving those he was meant to represent woefully unprotected? Labour's reaction to the scandal has been nothing short of frantic. In a bid to distance itself from the growing storm of controversy, the party leadership has swiftly cast Asbury aside, expelling him and condemning his actions as utterly indefensible. Yet, this move appears to be little more than a hastily contrived exercise in damage control, failing to address the systemic issues that allowed such an individual to thrive. It is clear that the rules governing MPs, specifically the Parliamentary Standards Act, which allows them to continue receiving their salaries until they formally lose their seats, are in dire need of reform. This loophole not only undermines public trust but also emboldens a culture in which accountability is conveniently sidestepped. The events leading up to this scandal are as chilling as they are illuminating. On that fateful October day in Fewdam-Cheshire, Asbury, aged 55, pleaded guilty to assaulting Mr. Fellows, a 45-year-old constituent. Eyewitnesses recount a scene of unprovoked brutality, with Asbury launching a series of savage punches that left Mr. Fellows with significant injuries, including a head wound and a grazed elbow. One witness's account remains seared in the public memory. As bystanders intervened, Asbury was heard declaring, "You won't threaten your MP again, will you?" Such a statement, dripping with hubris and a gross misuse of authority, encapsulates the abuse of power that has now become all too common. This case has not only exposed the failings of one individual but has also thrown into sharp relief the inadequacies of our parliamentary system. The fact that Asbury's salary remains unaffected by his criminal conviction is a glaring indictment of the existing framework. It is a situation that raises profound ethical questions about the privileges enjoyed by those in power and the fundamental fairness of our political institutions. How can we, as a society that prides itself on justice and equality, allow a convicted criminal to continue benefiting from the public purse? This is a question that demands an immediate and robust response from lawmakers and the wider public alike. The scandal has also set the stage for a potentially explosive political realignment. With mounting pressure for a by-election, a process that could see Reform UK capitalising on Labour's weakened position, the implications for future political contests are significant. The spectre of a by-election looms large, one that could dramatically alter the balance of power in a constituency already rattled by this unprecedented breach of public trust. For those of you watching, it is a stark reminder that in our democracy, no one is above the law, and the consequences of misconduct, no matter how deeply entrenched, must eventually be confronted. As we reflect on these events, it is impossible not to be struck by a profound sense of disillusionment. The conduct of Mike Asbury is indefensible, yet the systemic failings that have allowed him to continue drawing a salary while serving time represent a far greater betrayal. The public outcry is not simply about one man's actions. It is a denunciation of a system that appears to value political expediency over genuine accountability. The scandal forces us to ask, what kind of message does it send when an MP can escape the full ramifications of their actions through bureaucratic loopholes? The answer is clear: it erodes trust, fuels cynicism, and undermines the very foundations of democratic governance. It is incumbent upon us, as engaged citizens, to demand not only the resignation of those who have failed us but also a thorough and sweeping reform of the rules that govern our representatives. The case of Mike Asbury must serve as a catalyst for change, a wake-up call that the status quo is untenable. We must scrutinise our institutions, challenge their complacency, and insist on a level of accountability that is commensurate with the responsibilities bestowed upon our elected officials. The integrity of our democracy depends on it. In examining the Asbury scandal, we are confronted with the stark reality that without meaningful reform, the cycle of misconduct and impunity will persist, leaving the public disenchanted and our institutions forever tarnished. Let us engage critically with these events, recognizing that the fight for accountability is not merely a political struggle but a moral imperative that touches every facet of our society. Welcome again to British Focus, where we explore these pressing issues with candor and a commitment to uncovering the truth. In scrutinizing the abuses of power that have led to this crisis, we are reminded that our democratic system must be constantly refined to reflect the highest standards of integrity. The matter before us today is not simply a political scandal. It is a mirror held up to the face of our nation, demanding that we confront the uncomfortable truths about our institutions and the people who serve within them. The controversy surrounding Mike Asbury has ignited a fierce debate on the responsibilities and limits of parliamentary power, a debate that is as crucial as it is long overdue. In examining the matter, one cannot help but question the ethical framework of our political system when a convicted MP is allowed to continue receiving a full salary, even after being found guilty of criminal behaviour. This situation is not only an affront to the principles of justice and accountability, but it also raises serious concerns about the very integrity of Parliament itself. It is a stark reminder that, despite the high standards we expect from those entrusted with public office, the current rules enable a level of impunity that is both alarming and indefensible. The case of Mike Asbury has, in a very public and ignominious fashion, laid bare the contradictions inherent in a system that purports to champion accountability while simultaneously safeguarding its members from the full repercussions of their actions. The fact that an MP can serve a custodial sentence for assault yet continue to receive a taxpayer-funded salary of £91,000 per annum smacks of a profound moral and legal inconsistency. It forces us, as engaged citizens, to ask, how can a man who has violently assaulted a constituent, an act that betrays the very essence of public service, be allowed to benefit financially from the very system that is supposed to serve the people? This conundrum has not only stoked public outrage but also underscored the urgent need for reform in the mechanisms that govern parliamentary conduct. Many of you will agree that the current system appears to prioritize political expediency over genuine accountability. The rules that allow MPs to continue drawing their salaries until they are formally removed from office create a loophole that not only rewards misconduct but also undermines public trust. Both Labour and Reform UK have called for a by-election in response to the scandal, with Reform UK positioning itself as an anti-corruption alternative. However, Labour's apparent reluctance to act swiftly has only compounded the sense of disillusionment among voters, who are increasingly demanding a representative system that upholds ethical standards and ensures that those in power are held to account for their actions. This debate extends far beyond the immediate scandal. It forces us to confront a broader question. What is the true role of an MP? These elected officials are not merely lawmakers. They are meant to be the custodians of public trust, serving as the voice of the electorate and ensuring that the government remains accountable. When an MP like Asbury is allowed to continue benefiting from public funds despite a criminal conviction, it sends a damaging message to the public that the powerful are somehow above the law. Such a perception is corrosive to our democratic institutions and threatens to erode the very foundations of trust that are essential for a healthy political system. In light of these issues, it is essential that we reassess the rules governing parliamentary conduct. Many have suggested that MPs who are convicted of serious crimes should automatically forfeit their salary and lose their seat immediately. Such measures would not only deter misconduct but would also reaffirm the principle that no one, regardless of their position, should be immune from accountability. The integrity of our institutions depends on our ability to enforce standards that reflect the values of justice, fairness, and responsibility. Failure to do so risks not only the legitimacy of individual MPs but also the credibility of the entire democratic process. For those of you following this discussion, it is clear that the Asbury scandal is symptomatic of a much larger systemic failure. The reluctance of political leaders to implement meaningful reforms is a betrayal of the public trust and a stark indication that our current system is in dire need of an overhaul. If we are to restore confidence in our democratic institutions, it is imperative that we address the loopholes that allow misconduct to go unchecked. This means revisiting and revising parliamentary rules to ensure that any MP who engages in reprehensible behaviour is swiftly and decisively held accountable, without exception. As we ponder the implications of this scandal, we must also recognize that the issue is not confined to one individual or one political party. It is a call to all of us who value transparency and accountability in public life. The need for reform is not merely a political issue but a moral imperative, demanding that we scrutinize our institutions and demand better from those who represent us. The debate on parliamentary responsibility is one that affects every citizen, for it is the very foundation of our democratic society that is at stake. Without a system that upholds high standards of conduct, we risk a future where the lines between power and privilege become irretrievably blurred. In closing, I urge you all to consider the broader implications of the Asbury affair and to join in the call for systemic change. Let us not allow this scandal to pass as an isolated incident, but rather see it as a catalyst for the long overdue reforms that our political system so desperately needs. It is only by confronting these uncomfortable truths that we can hope to build a more accountable and just society. Thank you for engaging with this discussion. Farewell, and may we all strive for a future where integrity in public office is not just an ideal, but a lived reality.